Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. That's Larry Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. And I just want to point out before we start, Larry called all of this. A couple of weeks ago at the 49ers local pro day, Larry said, oh, Deebo's getting traded with like no hesitation. And then a couple of days ago when John Lynch sort of hemmed and hawed about what was going on, a lot of people were like, oh, there you go. He's not getting traded, including me. And Larry's like, did anyone listen? He's getting traded. It sounds like he's getting traded. It was reported last night that the Jets are going to come through with the desperation offer, the Godfather offer. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's supposed to contain pick number 10. 1, do you feel vindicated? 2, when will this trade go down?
Well, I think it will go down maybe on the clock because I actually really believe, Grant, that the 49ers probably want a certain player to be there at 10 to make that deal happen.
So it's contingent.
I think it's a contingent deal. I don't think it's a lock, but I think it's contingent on a player that they want being there. So I think it will happen on the clock during the first round. So what time will that be? Maybe 6 o'clock on Monday night, something like that, or on Thursday night.
Sounds right. Maybe that's correcting from last year when they traded up 2 months before the draft, not knowing who the quarterback would be at number 3. Now you just wait until you see who's on the clock. If it's not Jameson Williams and you don't like Chris Olave or whatever, maybe the trade's off.
And as far as vindication, my whole thing is just, I look at this as an impasse. I mean, what is the definition of an impasse? A true, 2 separate, lines of thinking here. There is no compromise that can be made when you have this level of a divide between what the player is expecting to make in guaranteed dollars and what the club wants to pay in guaranteed dollars. That's the impasse, and I don't see Parag and the Niners or Deebo and his agent giving, and thus the trade, I think, is not only the only move, I think it's the logical move. It's probably the right move.
And again, you think this is going down on the clock Thursday night if it goes down. And again, if maybe Jameson Williams is the guy the Niners want at 10. Is that what you think? Who do you think is their target?
No, I don't think it's Jameson Williams. I think Jameson Williams is a great talent, but I think that's a really bad situation unless you're tanking the year. And we can talk about that later because maybe they are tanking the year. Maybe Jameson. If they go Jameson Williams, that really feeds into we're dialing it back financially because we're going to take the highest upside guy. We don't care if he can play this year because we're not about this year. So Jameson Williams would be very, very interesting.
I wouldn't call it tanking. I'd call it punting.
Right.
Yes.
Deferring, whatever softer way you want to use it. Yeah. But, I think it's Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. I think that the Niners' view of the overall world is that everything gets done by your front four, and that they lost to the Rams because the Rams front four dictated to them in the NFC title game. And I think they what they learned from that is they need D Ford, but D Ford's not coming back. So they need to replicate what D Ford gave them in the year they got to the Super Bowl. And Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, I think is the highest rated defensive end. Greg Cosell loves him. Had an ACC Defensive Player of the Year. I think that's the player who could go 7, 8, 9 in front of them, which maybe would change their deal or call the deal off, or he could be there at 10. And if he's there at 10, I think that's their guy.
I think they're going with the guy with the torn ACL, Jameson Williams. Call me,
which feeds into the highest upside for the future.
Yes. I don't know. I think one of the issues right now with Deebo is that he's so good and he wasn't a first-round pick. If he'd been a first-round pick, the Niners would have a little more time to work something out, they would have him on, they'd have him for longer. But since he was a second-round pick, it all came to a head after year 3. I think they might want to have his replacement be a first-round pick, kind of like Ayuk. I'm just thinking.
I hear you, and I think it
maybe
makes
not at 10.
Yeah. What about a trade? I mean, I personally like Garrett Wilson more than Jameson Williams, but that's just more because I was thinking they're going to compete for a Super Bowl this year, and Jameson Williams may not play this year. But if the thinking is that they're punting on this year, dialing everything back, that this is going to be the rebuild year, especially, the other thing, Grant, that made me think that may be the case is when Lynch referenced, trading down from 61 and going with mass number of picks. That's kind of what you do when you're trying to reload for future seasons. And so maybe they're looking at this year as, hey, it's unlikely we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Year one of Trey, let's load up our depth, see what we have, and try to win the Super Bowl, not this year, but 23, 24, 20, or I guess 24, 25, 26.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I asked John Lynch a couple of days ago at his press conference, like, how would you respond to the criticism that you're having a bad offseason? I mean, you didn't extend Deebo, you haven't traded Jimmy, you didn't sign that many people. And he went on and on about how great the special teams is, which, okay, fine, that's what you're going to say. But then at the end, he said something I wasn't expecting. He said, we've spent a lot the last 5 years, top 5, top 10 in cash spending, cap spending. We always knew that eventually we were going to have to dial it back. We were planning on dial it back this year, and this is all part of the plan. I was like, what? You just went to the NFC Championship game, and the plan is to dial it back? I've never heard that. I mean, I guess you just laid it out. It's because they're making this transition to Trey Lance, and they're really afraid that he's not ready to lead this team to the Super Bowl, I guess.
Well, I don't want to, I hate the told you so stuff, but you and I, one of the first shows we did, we talked about the Super Bowl window. And your feeling was the Super Bowl window is open and tied it to Deebo. Yeah. My opinion was that the Super Bowl window is actually closed, and that it has to reopen only after Trey Lance establishes who Trey Lance is. Yeah. So maybe they feel that their Super Bowl window is not currently open, and this is the dial back year. But it just seems very odd considering they've got one of the more talented rosters, and they were one step from the Super Bowl last year. But they may view it that way.
It also seems like out of step with the trend. Like the trend right now is you get a quarterback. If you have a quarterback on a rookie deal and he's your starter, you increase your spending.
Yeah.
I mean, he's cheap. Go for it. Like make some purchases that are irresponsible. Things that, buy that Ferrari. Get that house at the pool. You know what I mean? Do some things you shouldn't do because it's okay. You can sort of correct it in a few years. The Niners aren't doing that. You have a 4-year window of a cheap quarterback. They wasted year 1. They're not taking advantage of year 2. That's 50%. That's too bad.
Yeah, I don't. That you're right. That goes against what other teams have done. Other teams have said, we're going to go with the young quarterback and we're going to try to make some expenditures around that young quarterback while he's super cheap and go for a title in that window.
Yeah.
If that's their plan, man, they're going about it in a very interesting way.
Compare the Niners and the Dolphins. The Dolphins are their head coach is Kyle Shanahan's doppelganger. He's like the 5'6" version of Kyle Shanahan. They look different. They think the same. He goes over there and what he does is just he doesn't change the quarterback. Inherits Tua, says, okay, I'm just going to bring in the best supporting cast possible, and I'm going to spend a lot. I mean, he wasn't the GM, but that's the philosophy. You got Kyle, like his hands are tied because of what? Parag, Jed, maybe Denise. Maybe Denise and John came down this year and they're like, hey, we lost. Our portfolio is not really what we want it to be. We're gonna take our foot off the gas this year. Like, okay, if that's what you said. The pandemic hurt us a little bit. We need to. Oh, all right. Well, that's what the York said. What are you gonna do?
We have examples of them being very willing to spend money. I mean, the Greenbrier. I mean, that's not exactly cheap. Taking the entire team to Arizona, having everybody live in a hotel for a month or whatever it was, that wasn't cheap. Maybe they felt like the pandemic forced them into expenditures that were unforeseen, and now they need to recoup some of that. I don't think it's the best plan, but just trying to understand the reasoning.
I just never am moved when billionaires say they need to save a little money. To me, I always hear Oakland A's. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So it doesn't seem like something Eddie DeBartolo ever would have said. Guys, I'm having a little bit. We got to save a little money this year. Like, are you kidding me? You got to.
Even if you think it, don't say it,
and then you'll make money.
Yeah, don't. The rule of thumb is never say it. Never say it. You might want to do. You want to go do it. You want to go save money? Go save money, but don't ever say it. Don't ever.
How I interpreted it was basically Lynch was saying, "Look, it's not my fault. I didn't get the budget this year. I didn't get the Yorks didn't let me pay, so I did the best I could.
I'm an employee here.
Right. I mean, that's what he did in a sly way. Like, look, I mean, given the parameters I was shackled with, I improved specialty. What more do you want me to do? Okay.
Well, it's almost, Grant, it's very consistent with his lines on Deebo.
Yeah.
The people that took away from that presser, they ain't trading Deebo. They pointed to what John said. John said things that like, how do you trade a player like this? It's really hard. It's really difficult to let a player like this walk out the door. He didn't say he wasn't going to do it. He could have made the whole thing go away by saying, hey, what Steve Keim did. Kyler will not be traded.
Not going to happen.
That ends it. He didn't do that. So that tells me that he's going to be traded.
I would agree. We got a couple of topics. Little Lord Stewie says, did Ray McCloud mess up the situation with Deebo if Ray is playing wide receiver and punt returner? Yeah, that's what happened. The Niners signed Ray and Deebo got he threatened. It's like, oh, Ray's going to take my job. I'm out of here. Ray is going to take my job.
The entire season's undone by the Ray McCloud edition.
Absolutely. That's what it was. It was the disrespect. Robert says if the Niners had the first pick in the draft, who would you pick? Is it possible that player could drop to 10?
They had the first pick in the draft.
How about that safety?
Yeah. They'd probably go Aiden Hutchinson and say, oh, we got Bosa on one side, Hutchinson on the other.
Okay. Let's circle back to Deebo. Have the 49ers handled this situation correctly? And the reason I ask this question is we don't know if he's a good long-term investment. We don't know if the 49ers are at fault here. Maybe Deebo Samuel just was totally unwilling to negotiate. There's a lot we don't know, but from what we do know,
my door is slamming here. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. The wind got it. Oh, he's gone. He's going to leave, come around, and appear from a different direction. That's what my prediction. I thought he was going to come back through the door, but no, that's not what he's doing. This is suspense. I love it. Boom. See, I called it. I was right. There you go. There we go. It's okay. So, Larry, have the 49ers handled the Deebo Samuel situation correctly so far?
Well, I don't know how they could have handled it. To me, Grant, I'll point, you know me, I'll point the finger if the finger needs to be pointed. I don't know that if I'm pointing the finger, I would, to me, they got here situationally. They used him the way they wanted to use him based on trying to win football games in the present. I don't know that they really thought it through from, hey, if we use this player as a running back, that almost guarantees that we have to pay him at the top of the scale as a wide receiver because we're shortening his career. And we're going to everybody who's at all in his ear is going to tell him that. And so then he's going to be that much more entrenched in his position that he needs to be paid as a top wide receiver right now because we're flirting with his mortality as a football player. We're shortening his career. So he's got to get his money up front. So if their whole plan was to not pay him commensurate with the top receivers in the game, then to use him as a running back probably was not wise because it just basically demands that his agent says, you know what, you want to use my guy on short yardage on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, run him through the A gap, fine, but pay him top tier so then at least we can look each other in the eye and say, hey, you know what, we're getting paid at the top of the scale. We're going to do whatever the team wants to do because we're all about winning. So to me, there's a little bit of a disconnect between how they utilized him as a player and what their strategy was to pay him, on the contract. So to me, I blame the situation. I blame Trent Baalke for signing Christian Kirk. The market, I think, for receivers exploded. All these things aren't necessarily have a blame attached, but I don't know that that Parag and Kyle talked about the ramifications of using him so completely as a running back from that Arizona game on and what that would mean to the contract negotiations.
What I think is interesting is how the Niners are trying to spin the narrative now. And the way they're trying to spin it is, well, we don't understand Deebo's issue. We were willing to pay him. Deebo's great. Deebo's elite. We don't want to give up Deebo. We want to pay Deebo. Deebo just won't negotiate with us. Deebo has some issue. It might be personal. Maybe he doesn't like California. It can't be us because we're great. And we love Deebo, and we want to pay him, and we have nothing but the best intentions. We love players. We love stars. We're a pro player team. Deebo is the one that he's going to have to say something eventually because we don't understand. That's pretty much they're playing dumb, and they're making Deebo seem like he's an emotional, immature, diva, selfish, all those things without saying it. We love Deebo. We just don't know where he's coming from. I don't really think that's true. I think I know where Deebo's coming from. I think he's treating the Niners like Kyrie Irving treated the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't want to be here anymore. I know Parag. I know you do business. I don't like the South Bay. I don't like the tax. It's really expensive. You were going to have to make it worth my while to stay here. I have no loyalty to you guys. I'm a businessman. You're not going to come through for me. Let's just skip the whole charade. I mean, players do this all the time in the NBA. No, they don't really do it in the NFL, but I think Deebo's acting like Kyrie Irving, essentially. And not in a bad way. It's just sort of taking control of his career.
I think his agent has laid out the impasse to him. Hey, this is an organization that doesn't have a history of paying anything close to $70 million guaranteed. So we can bang our head against the wall all day, or we can just say, you know what, guys, save your low ball offers, and just let me out of here. I think the agent correctly identifies that they're not going to bend and that Parag's philosophy is not going to change. And so it's a true impasse, and that means there has to be a divorce.
Right. And the Niners, again, where I say they handled it incorrectly, they didn't anticipate this. They thought, Deebo is going to be like Fred Warner and George Kittle, and he's going to go through the process, and we're going to, make him sweat. But eventually we'll take care of him, and it's just going to be on our time and on our schedule, and we'll pay him probably $27-28 million a year. Of course, the guaranteed money won't be that high, and we'll have a bunch of outs, and it'll be team friendly, and it'll say that he's the highest paid non-quarterback, but then a week later, everyone's going to say, oh, Parag got him again. It's a team-friendly deal. Like, that's what the Niners' plan was most likely, and Deebo had no patience for it, and his agent had no patience for it. I don't think the Niners had any – I don't think they saw it coming. I don't think they're ready for the next generation of NFL stars is what I'm saying. These guys –
I don't think the Niners' offer would stand up to an autopsy.
No.
Like if you said, Parag, let's see your best offer to Deebo and let's put it on a piece of paper and analyze that, can guarantee dollars and everything that goes with it next to Devontae's deal, next to Tyreek's deal, next to all the deals for the top receivers. And let's see if when we autopsy that, exactly where it all comes out. I think they were banking on the reason Warner and some of these guys have stayed is because they love it here, because you can win here. And if you fulfill your contract, you stay healthy, you're probably going to make similar money. And they look at it as a trade-off because they like being successful. But Deebo's looking at it going, hey, man, you're asking me to go above and beyond and to really be two guys at once. Yep. And then you're going to lowball me and not give me the guaranteed money. No.
And there's California on top of all that.
And then California, I think, secondary, yeah.
But on top of all that, I'm taking home less money because it's California. I'm not going to buy my house here. I'm going to rent. That's expensive. I'm going to get a house back there. And the taxes are high. So it's like, and Parag's going to get me. So where's the incentive for – I think that's kind of what – and again, I want to say, like, the Niners are trying to act like Deebo's a one-off. Deebo is just his own guy, marches to the beat of his own drum. It's never going to happen again. Are you sure? Are you sure? I think this whole Parag low ball, hard ball negotiation style is a thing of the past, and it's going to make the Niners the Cleveland Cavaliers of the NFL if they don't get with the times. You can't treat these stars like this anymore. I don't think you can.
You can't exist in an era where you have two ways to get better: free agency and the draft. You can't cut off half of your of the way to procure talent because you have a reputation as you won't pay your guys. The Rams pay their guys; they're wearing jewelry. You're not paying your guys; you're not wearing jewelry. You can analyze it beyond that if you want, but the players don't. So ultimately, it really comes down to. Parag is great if you're about saving every nickel, but Parag is not great if you're trying to establish that you're a viable landing spot in free agency for the top talent around the league.
This reminds me a little bit of the Jalen Ramsey situation. He was a little brash. He was a little ahead of his time. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a ridiculous franchise. I mean, they're awful. They don't make money. They're not a factor. They don't know what they're doing. They were lucky enough to have Jalen Ramsey for a few years and talk themselves into him being the problem, right? They made him seem like he was a bad apple. And the Rams are smart enough. Like, you know what? You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to handle stars. We'll take him. And the Rams eventually win a Super Bowl. There are two kind of teams in this league. The teams like the Jaguars, who alienate stars like Jalen Ramsey and Deebo Samuel, and teams like the Rams who profit off of those aforementioned teams. Which one do you want to be, 49ers? Because right now you're looking like Jacksonville. Just saying.
And what does Deebo and Ramsey have in common? And this is where you have to break the bank sometimes for these players. They're not just great players. They are tone setters.
Yeah.
Tone setters. And when you have a tone setter, whether that's William Floyd in 1994 or Deebo Samuel in 2022, you know what? You don't let those tone setting type players out the door, because those are the guys that ultimately they lead you out of the locker room, and they're the ones who are, you know, everybody else is looking to lead the team. This guy's one of the leaders on the team. I think there'll be some pushback if they move on from him.
Right, but what did Jacksonville do with Jalen Ramsey? Even though he was a leader on that team too, that he's he's unprofessional. He talks back, all this stuff. They traded him for 2 first-round picks and tried to replace him in the draft with C.J. Henderson, who's no longer on their team. So that's just a cautionary tale, and it shows you how hard it is to replace truly special competitors, athletes like Deebo and Jalen Ramsey. So no, I don't think the Niners have handled this correctly. But once Deebo took the nuclear option and burned the bridge, I think since then the Niners have handled things correctly. And if they get the 10th pick from the Jets, they'll make the best of a situation they messed up.
Yeah, unfortunately, letting great football players out the door, I don't care. You know, yes, the Niners are armed with an army of yes men. Go defend that. Go defend that. Yeah, it's hard to defend.
Steven Copland 8 said, did the Niners deliberately lowball Deebo? I guess we'll have to find out from Deebo eventually. I wonder if he'll spill the beans. I hope so. Please. Ryan Niner says, with Deebo's style of play, is his career most likely going to be shorter? Running backs have a short shelf life. I understand wanting the money now. I guess that's what I'm asking you here. Like, if you feel that Deebo is never going to be as good as he was last year, maybe you don't give him the long-term extension. I mean, maybe the Jets are doing this because everyone's job is on the line over there, and they just need one good year out of Deebo so they can stay employed. I mean, what do you think?
It's New York. I mean, Joe Douglas is in year 3.
Right.
He's 6-23. They were 3-14 this last year. They got the longest playoff drought in the league today. They haven't been to the playoffs for 11 years, and they've got a young quarterback that people are already saying is a bust. And Robert Saleh is already being, said that Robert Saleh is failing. I mean, the dial of speed is turned up in New York, and you have to produce. And he's looking at the draft going, you know what? I could take this receiver. I could take that receiver, but they may bust. If I trade for Deebo, I know I'm getting a star. So they're taking a lot of the guesswork out of they have draft picks, but they need to win. And they're taking the guesswork out by trading those draft picks for Deebo.
Richard Sherman said the Niners should trade Deebo for that top 10 pick and a Pro Bowl player. I understand where he's coming from. It's nice to get one proven commodity for someone and not just total unknowns. But I don't think they're going to get that.
I mean, I saw yesterday that the Jets are preparing a Godfather-like offer for the Niners. I'd like to know what that includes. Does that include Quinnen Williams? If so, I'm interested. Does that include Mekhi Becton? I think I'd be interested. Does that mean they're going to flip Trey and Wilson? Because we know Kyle loved Wilson. Is Deebo going to force them to come off their quarterback? I don't know. I don't know what exactly a Godfather offer is, but it's not the 10th pick in the draft for Deebo Samuel. You better come a lot stronger than the 10th pick in the draft.
Hey, Larry, you want 50,000 views on a video? Make a 2-minute video saying, and the title is, will the 49ers trade Trey Lance to the Jets for Zach Wilson on draft night? Boom. That's the video.
It's a video. It would just explode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ricky said, tonight.
Oh, do that. Ricky says, if we get a king's ransom for Deebo, would you consider it a failure since Deebo was traded before porn star Jimmy, or a success since we got so much in return? Good question. I think the way that the fact that it got to this point is a failure. What they've done since Deebo Samuel burned the bridge seems to be the best they can do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's again situational. Once Deebo showed that he's really better as a running back than as a receiver, and he is, then to me, then the system's working against you. then you can't extend him. You can't pay him as a top-tier wide receiver when you're planning on using him like Tom Rathman. You just can't. So to me, it's smarter to trade. I would rather trade Deebo and get a king's ransom than keep Deebo at anything. I don't want him at 70 million, and I don't want him at 50 million, because at 50 million, he's unhappy and he doesn't want to be, he resents me handing him the ball. I don't want that resentment, but I don't want to pay him 70 million. So my only option is to trade him.
Little or Stewie says Christian Watson would be the best first round pick, number 10, because if Trey hasn't played a season in years, wouldn't the best option be Watson because they're old teammates? I've heard this a lot, and this has come up because of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. I think the reason they're such a good combination is because Jamar Chase is great and Joe Burrow is really good. The fact that they were roommates is probably really low on the list, and I don't think that Christian Watson is Jamar Chase.
No.
So
I like Christian Watson. I seriously, if they could get Christian Watson as one of the 3 or 4 draft picks and turn it into Christian Watson in round 2, like you took Christian Watson, Grant, 38 or 35 or whatever that pick is. Yeah, yes. I like it, but you're not. If you take him 10, you're out of a gig.
You're definitely out of a gig. Richie says the picks we get back for Deebo will help the team get better. Trey's ability to use the entire field will make up for Deebo's loss in productivity. Here's the thing: this trade will allow the Niners to say they, didn't trade as much for Trey Lance. They're recouping assets that they gave up for Trey Lance. But what would really help Trey Lance is Deebo, not the picks. I'm just saying. But this is how they're going to make the Trey Lance trade more palatable. Yeah, we gave up a lot for him, but we got some picks back. Not from trading Jimmy like we wanted to, from trading Deebo.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Okay,
next question. I think we did this one already. No, yeah, we did this one already. So let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Will Daniel Brunskill move to center if Alex Mack retires?
It's interesting. That was the other giveaway that Lynch had in that presser when he started talking about how in the Niners system, they can go with young centers. That sounds to me, Grant, like they may make a big blockbuster deal, get that 10th pick, and either use the second round picks if they get those for Linderbaum, or trade back from 10 into the 20s and take Linderbaum. You're not taking him at 10, but but the Iowa center is spectacular. And I'm hardly wowed by centers, but it's almost seemed like Lynch was prepping us for there's going to be a rookie center, and Linderbaum is far and away the best of
but
those.
Linderbaum, they would have to take him with the 10th pick, right? Like, would he go that high?
Well, he's going to go. Let's just say they got the Jets' second round pick too. He's going to go between 10 and that second round pick. Okay. Or he does have short arms, and he is a center, and there is a chance he could be there on the board at the top of round 2.
What's interesting about this prediction, like Kyle Shanahan is known to like having premium centers, and Alex Mack, although he was at the end of his career, he worked with Kyle a lot. He was a first-round pick, right? 21st pick in 2009. People forget Weston Richburg was the second-round pick. I think he was the 43rd pick. So I think Kyle Shanahan likes having premium talent at that spot. And so I don't know if they could get it at 61, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took a center at 10, even though I wouldn't do it. I think he might. Or he might trade up to 61 to do it.
I think that your idea of using Deebo as a way to recoup the Trey Lance expenditure makes even more sense that they would trade down from 10. Because if you do trade from 10 down to 25, which is, I think, prime Linderbaum territory, you're probably getting another number 1 pick for that. And maybe that, so if they really want to recoup the Trey asset, you trade down from 10 and you take Linderbaum in the 20s.
So so you think they're going to actually get Linderbaum's interesting. So they could keep Brunskill at one spot, and then you have McGlinchey, and then essentially you have like a 5-way competition for one guard spot between Aaron Banks, who they say they like, but I don't believe. I don't believe him at all. They also have Jalen Moore, Colton McKivitz, Justin School. I'm guessing they'll go with Colton McKivitz just because he's a guy that started for them a couple of times.
Yeah, they seem like they trusted him when the season was on the line.
Yeah. He's the new Mike Person or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so Linderbaum. See, these guys have not been on my radar because I've been looking at late second, early mid third. Now I'm looking at first round pick. So, can you tell people a little bit about him? He's the primary center in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, he is the best center that I've seen in a long time. Okay. I mean, this guy's got unbelievable mobility. He's a plug and play player. He's a guy that you could put out there week one, and he's going to be a near Pro Bowl caliber center, in my opinion. He's a little bit short arms, but that's not a primary concern. It's a bigger concern at tackle. At center, what you're looking, he can play center, he can play guard. I think they would utilize him at center, but he's just tenacious. He locks on. He's got unbelievable mobility, smarts, tenacity. I mean, he's the total package. He's one of the best interior offensive linemen I've seen. This guy gets out. You can throw those, where you want him to get outside the tackle box and actually find somebody, pick off an athlete in space and knock him off his pins. He's that kind of a offensive guard or offensive center. I think he's a difference-making offensive center. I really do.
Well, I mean, if he's all that you say he is, he would be the best center they've had, because I always felt that Weston Richburg was solid but not great, and I thought that Alex Mack. I mean, he's older. He was better 5-6 years ago.
Goodwin was good. Remember Goodwin when they went to the bowl? He was pretty good.
Goodwin was good. I was thinking more of the Kyle Shanahan years, but yeah, Goodwin was actually a key member of that team. He was underrated. Yeah. He definitely solidified that line. Good call. Okay, and then we got McKivitz. What do you think of that? I mean, if they get Linderbaum, I guess that changes the outlook of that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, I don't know about Banks because I didn't watch him at Notre Dame. The people that I've talked to around the league say that he's too slow to play in Kyle's system, and that's
what everyone thought.
That's why he didn't play this year.
So why did they draft him?
There is maybe a little bit of a disconnect between the people making the decisions on draft day and the coaching staff. I mean, how about Trey Sermon? Trey Sermon ran for 300 yards, played well against, was it Seattle? Never got on the field after that. I mean, it was a weird year for their rookies as far as, did the coaching staff talk to the scouting staff in the lead up to last year's draft, or were they on different islands? I have no idea, but there seemed to be somewhat of a disconnect. Jalen Moore looked great in the preseason, never played again, couldn't beat out Tom Compton. Banks was a second-round pick, couldn't even get active. Trey Sermon couldn't get on the field. I mean, a lot of mixed messages coming out of Santa Clara on that rookie class last year.
Yeah. Last thing about Linderbaum, he went to Iowa, as you said, right?
Yeah.
That's where Kittle went. So, I mean, this is a place that's producing run blockers the Niners like and have had success with. Also, there's pedigree there, right? I mean, there's the Scherf. I don't know what team he's on now. Was he on Jacksonville? Brandon Scherf? Anyway, he was with Washington for a long time.
Yeah.
He went to Iowa.
He's made a ton of money.
Yeah. They produced really good offensive linemen, except Robert Gallery. That was a mistake.
Who went second and is now in Pleasanton. But I won't say anything bad about Robert Gallery. He lives in Pleasanton. I live in Walnut Creek.
Nice.
There's that 680 is too short of a distance to really bag on Gallery.
I didn't know that. He lives out here. That's cool. Good for him.
Yeah.
Ninth Wonder Comics says Deebo 1,000 through 8. How's he better as a running back? See, that's what I think. To me, he is a lot like Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase drops passes too. Jamar Chase is faster than Deebo. Deebo's more physical than Jamar Chase. They're both two of the best guys in space after the catch. The fact that Deebo can also play running back was something he did as a sacrifice to the 49ers because they didn't have Mostert. I mean, I think he was like, it was a favor. And I think he thought he would be like rewarded for his sacrifice. And the Niners were like, they used it against him.
Well, what my point on that is just that Deebo as a route runner on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 6.
Agreed.
Deebo
isn't Jamar Chase too, though? That was his knock.
I think Jamar Chase is stronger at the catch point, more reliable at the catch point. He'll go up in a crowd. He'll catch it in a crowd. I think Deebo's strength is he's like a TO. He's awesome with the ball in his hands. He's faster. He's powerful. Once he gets 3 steps, you can't tackle him.
Yeah.
No solo tackles. We got one starched hit in that Ram game. Other than that, for the most part, he delivers punishment. I just see him as an ordinary route runner who's awesome with the ball in his hands.
I would agree with that. Isn't that sort of what A.J. Brown is too?
I think Brown's more of a downfield threat. I think he's got better ball skills. Yeah. I mean, like Deebo's got okay ball skills. He's not bad, but he's not Chris Carter, No,
he's got the short arms. And he does drop.
He hit 12 drops this year.
True. Ninth Wonder Comics says smart thing would have been to front load the Deebo contract and make him happy. Draft picks hardly work. Niners are proof of that. That's what I would have done. We'll see what he does. I mean, he did look. I'm just saying the thing with Deebo, I think the Niners' biggest concern is his weight. It fluctuates in the sense of it gets high. At his best, he's 215 and he's a lean, mean fight machine. That's what he was last year. But sometimes he's a little thick. And I think that's a concern because he's so explosive. And if he gets to 220, 225, that's when he pulls stuff. So
soft tissue injuries going back to South Carolina, hammies, quads, that kind of thing. Yep. My biggest concern, Grant, is that they pay him and that he's not thrilled with his paycheck and he doesn't work out quite with the same, zealousness that he did last year. And you have a player who you've paid and now he's got hammies and he's missing games.
It'll be interesting to see. Killer Cam says if the Niners trade Deebo, wouldn't he have to get a physical done by today? He could pass a physical.
Yeah, I don't think the physical is going to be an issue. Why would it be?
Yeah, I think he's okay. Kalen Ortiz says our only bad franchises spend huge money on these wide receivers. Seems like good franchises are trading these wide receivers.
Well, here's the thing. Always, none of these moves get made in a vacuum. This is the third year in a row that we've not only seen good wide receiver classes, we're seeing the deepest wide receiver classes we've ever seen come into the NFL, and it's 3 years in a row. So what does that tell you? When colleges all go 3, 4, and 5 wide, guess what happens? Receivers are all over the place and they develop at a faster rate. Same way receivers develop in the Canadian League. They develop through reps. So that's why paying wide receivers, the good teams don't want to do it because it's like a bus. There's going to be another one along in 20 minutes. Don't worry about losing out on a top tier wide receiver. You're living in the golden age of wide receiver production coming into the league.
It's like running backs now. I mean, because all the best athletes in America growing up have realized that if you want to get paid, you want to play wide receiver or quarterback. But I mean, if you don't want to be a running
pass
back,
rusher,
everyone knows that. Well, yeah, if you're 6'5" and 270 for sure. But if you were 6 feet, 210, play wide receiver, not running back.
Yeah,
I think everyone knows that by now. Maybe 40 years ago it was different. There was a lot of glamour in playing running back then, you against the world kind of thing. Now it's like you're not going to last, and everyone knows.
Ricky Waters, if he came out today, would say, "I want to play wide receiver."
I'm a wide receiver. Yeah. So that's interesting. Steven, $20. He says, I'm hoping we get number 10 use on Ahmad Gardner, Sauce Gardner, and the second get Watson and Elijah Moore. Ooh, Elijah Moore. Could the Niners get that? Him.
I mean, first of all, I can make a really compelling argument that Elijah Moore will be more productive going forward than Deebo Samuel.
Wow.
So I think Elijah Moore is a great young player who's a little on the small side, but he's going to have huge production going forward. And yeah, if you could get Elijah Moore, that would be an unbelievable coup to get that kid coming back.
I wanted to come back to Kaylin's comment. There's one more thing I wanted to say. She says it seems like good franchises are trading these wide receivers. I don't think it's that simple. I mean, the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs and paid him. They're a good franchise.
Yeah.
So I think it's partly like if you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, you should be spending a lot on wide receivers because you can afford them. You just saw what the Chiefs did. Now that Patrick Mahomes is costing them so much money, they can't afford Tyreek Hill anymore. The Dolphins can. And what's crazy is the Niners theoretically can afford high-priced wide receivers, but they still have Jimmy. And beyond that, philosophically, I don't think Jed, Denise, John, Parag have wrapped their mind around spending quarterback money on wide receivers. I don't think they philosophically are ready to go there yet. Maybe they will in the future.
Grant, I mean, we got to see them operate in this space going forward on any position. I mean, the most guaranteed money they've ever spent is $40 million. That that's going to have to change. Whether you want to change it with Deebo or somebody else, that's up for them to debate. But we're going to spend $30 million guaranteed less than the rest of the league. Check back in 5 years. Let me know how that's going.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that's how the Niners do business. What they do is they're like, what do you want? You want to say you're the highest paid player in the league? You want to say you have X amount annually? We'll make it look like you are. You can get that headline, but the guaranteed money isn't going to be there. and there's going to be a lot of outs for us. And in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a bunch of reports on how Parag did it again, team-friendly deal. That's how the Niners do business. And players like Deebo Samuel are not going to put up with that anymore in the future. They're not going to do that anymore. So,
well, here's what I want to know, Grant, is I know at the top of the 49er masthead, it's Jed and his parents. Mm-hmm. But what I want to know is how would you rank as far as who runs this organization between Kyle, Parag, and John? Is it Kyle, as the fans would say? Is it John? He's got the title, or actually is Parag above them and they build the team after he sets the parameters? That's what I'd like to know. I'd like to know who works for who in that triumvirate.
It seemed like Kyle was the top guy the last
I think
5
so
years.
Too.
But what John said this week is interesting because I always had the feeling that Kyle could sort of step in and say, hey, Denise, we need a little bit more money. John, Jed, come on. We need Trent Williams. Can we get a little bit more money? And I think what John Lynch is saying is that not this year. Kyle can't do that this year. John can't do that this year. That basically the Yorks feel they have been generous and it's time for Parag to come back in and tell John and Kyle what their budget is. That's what it feels like to me. So Parag is very, very important.
He is important. And you can't call them, like, you can't just say, oh, the Niners are cheap. No, they're not cheap. They paid the Tom Sula era coaching staff to go away. They paid Chip Kelly's coaches to go away. They've paid off, 3 generations of coaches between Harbaugh's guys, Tom Sula's guys, Kelly's guys. They've shown they paid for the team to stay at the Greenbrier. They stayed in Arizona. They spent money during the pandemic. But if they're trying to recoup that now that's going to be a problem.
They're
but to this point, they've spent. They're
not cheap, but they're fiscally conscious. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just spending. They know every single dime that goes out and it's accounted for and Parag's on top of it. And they're not just like abundanza. I mean, that was Eddie, right? That's not how they do.
Right.
And they're like, they'll call up their friend. Hey, I loaned you $20 last month. Where's that 20? Even though I have $4 billion, I need that 20. Don't play with my money.
Right.
Play with my money. That's how they kind of are. Professor Lawless says, smart bet with your dad yesterday. I think the Niners are going to be stupid and keep porn star Jimmy on the roster too. Niners front office have a bunch of smart idiots. Wow. Pay that man. Yeah, I think the Niners are going to keep
What was
Jimmy
the wager?
A bottle of wine. A $50 bottle of wine. I think they're going to keep Jimmy. I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't think they're going to cut him. I think they're going to keep him as a backup and tell themselves that they can make it work.
Pinot, Merlot, Cabernet.
I think we went the nicest $50 Pinot we could find at Whole Foods, whatever. I think that's what I usually lose when we take it to the bottles of wine. I usually lose. My dad's just got wisdom.
Yes.
Daniel says Vincent Frank, blue check, tweeted the Jets offered 10, 35, 99. They don't even have 99, 22 for live. Blah, blah, blah. No, don't believe that. Don't give this guy any. I'm sorry I said his name. No. Ninth Wonder Comics says after last year's draft class, how could anyone be happy with the draft picks for Deebo? Yeah, I mean, really, right? That's one way to look at it. You're going to get the next Trey Sermon, the next Aaron Banks. Okay.
I mean, I hear that, but at the same time, I'm always looking at what potentially you could do with it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you could screw up those picks, and then what? I mean, people talk about all day about how all these draft trades. Remember when who was it? Was it Ditka and the Saints traded their entire draft for Ricky Williams?
That's right.
Well, that didn't make Washington a dynasty. So obviously Washington blew those picks.
Remember, Ricky Williams' agent was Master P.
Right.
Who got Ricky Williams the worst contract ever. It was like all incentives. He got hurt. I think he made like a few $100,000 his rookie year.
Right.
It's all about those guarantees now, baby. It's all about guarantees, and the Niners don't want to play that game. Sorry. The league is changing. There's no more Master Ps out there that Parag Marathe can take advantage of. God loved Master P. It's just it wasn't his field.
Right.
It wasn't his field. Zane says, wishing good health and blessing to everyone who sees this. Life is short. Stay connected with your loved ones. Keep it up, Grant. Shout out to your pops. Thank you, Zane.
Look at that. Zane, I feel very zen with that Zane comment.
That was very nice. Jordan Banks TV says, if Deebo stays, should he apologize to the fans?
For what?
For requesting a trade publicly?
Hey, people, don't personalize business disputes between two sides. Don't do it. Don't ever do it.
I think it's funny though that even today Deebo came out and tweeted like, "Oh, everyone thinks they know what's going on, but no one really knows." Like he's sort of leaving the door open for this possibility that he comes back to the Niners and it's awkward and he can be like, "Well, no one knows. I mean, we're good." Because maybe secretly he just wants the 49ers to call him tonight and say, "We're so sorry. Here's a blank check. We love you. You're the greatest." Maybe that would do it. But I don't think they're going to do it.
Would he be? Is he going to be happy running the ball if he comes back at anything less than, a top tier price? That would be my first question. Because if not, I don't want him.
Here's another way to look at it, though. Don't you want someone else running the ball? Like, isn't he running the ball because Mostert got hurt and you didn't have a mid-year replacement? Wouldn't you rather just get a running back as opposed to asking your wide receiver to do that for you? Even though he's good at it. Of course he's good at it. He's good at everything. He's good at return. For example, Deebo's a hell of a kick returner. The Niners don't let him do that unless the season's on the line because he might get hurt. Like, just because he can do it doesn't mean you want him to. Don't you just get a running back?
Yeah. But the problem is that he does the running back job,
so well,
in my opinion,
so
better.
Good.
Career, he's the best running back.
From the gun, career, he's averaging over 7 yards a carry.
Wow. Yeah.
Imagine him with Trey Lance or Lamar Jackson or someone else who would be. I want to see it. Anyway, Jay says Larry finally took a shower this week. Harsh. Yay. That means the film is no longer being
that ain't right.
Larry has wrapped up his scouting. Right. Have you wrapped up your scouting? Is the hay in the barn, as they say?
Yes. I'm all ready for the draft.
Your big boys ready?
And I showered hours ago today.
Frank Garcia says, what will our cap look like if Deebo is ultimately traded and we don't have to pay him and we are able to get Jimmy off the books?
Who cares?
Who cares? Yeah. I mean,
what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. Deebo's only cost me $4 million this year. So that's not much. In the future, it's a slot. You can now pay that money to Brandon Ayuk or the next wide receiver. Eventually, the Yorks are going to have to pay a wide receiver a lot of money, or they're just going to keep trading him, and I think that's a mistake. Because, again, they used to say the game is won in the trenches. I think that's sort of changing. As the game's in the shotgun, the ball gets out of quarterbacks' hands quicker, and players like Jamar Chase and Deebo Samuel are doing all their work after the catch. I don't know. Maybe it's more the game is won in space. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what happens in the next 5 years. But it's an interesting trend. Deebo can't run deep routes or separate from cornerbacks.
Or did he just not have a quarterback who could throw it to him deep?
I mean, really, can we see him with a better quarterback first before we make such a definitive statement? Deebo filled a void last year. That void was Mostert. Let's keep that in mind. Love Deebo, but life goes on.
That's accurate.
I'd like to see what Mostert can do in Miami. He's a hell of a player and he's healthy.
Well, that's the other thing. They do need multiple. If they trade Deebo, they better get more than the 10th pick because they have multiple needs. This guy manned 2 roles. If you trade him, you better get 2 guys. If you really want to replace Deebo, I think you got to get like a Jahan Dotson from Penn State who can catch Trey's lasers.
Yes.
And you better get Kenneth Walker III from Michigan State so you have a true number 1 running back. If you do it, you've replaced him. If you don't,
I totally agree. The Niners have to get some combination of the best wide receivers and running backs in this draft. It could be Jamison Williams and Breece Hall. It could be the 2 that you just named, but that's what it is. This is 30% of your offense in the regular season and 47% of your offense in the playoffs that you're replacing. It's Deebo. So, okay, fine. 2 players, at least 2. And the running back was funny. Like the wide receiver is more valuable because he's a wide receiver. The running back's more important to the Niners. That's why they won when Deebo was playing running back. For whatever reason, they're built to run the ball. That running back that they may draft this year is going to be very important. He needs to be an impact player, unlike Trey Sermon. I don't know.
Day one. And you better get a tone setter. It's somebody else is going to have to set the tone if you don't have Deebo.
Stephen Pryor, thank you very much. Trade Ray McCloud of the dead. Dude. Vincent Frank. Anyway, it's always funny to see people try to change their lives with, a scoop around this time. They know that Deebo's going to get traded and they figure if I'm the one that reports it, someone might hire me. And so maybe people guess or who knows? Anyway, it's like, oh, good try, man. Good going. Nice. That really blew up in your face. Remember that guy a few years ago, Aryeh Abraham, who was 16 and he said that LeBron James was going to the Lakers, and he was really famous for a minute. Do you remember that guy? Anyway.
No. Maybe I'll try that.
R.E.A. Abraham. He was just guessing. Anyway, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Larry. Go on my Twitter. I have a thing pinned to the top of my Twitter about merch if you want to buy stuff with my face on it.
What are you selling? What do you got? I got merch
it's
going
a
too
survey
right now.
to see what people want. It's just a survey to see what people want.
Coffee
Dude,
I'm busting out the Krug Show T-shirt, the Krug
Show
T-shirts.
Taking it to the next level, baby.
You can buy them at Cacero's in Dublin. Go get yourself a suit. Get a T-shirt.
I love how quickly Larry's gotten his feet underneath him in this game. I mean,
it's all because of you, dude.
Well, thank you.
It's all because of you. You gave me the leadership. I appreciate it.
I just handed the baton. You're off and running. He had Vish on today. If you like watching Vish on my channel, Larry had him on today. Check him out. I'm gonna watch him. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Dude, Vish, incredible.
Vish is money. I'll be back in a couple hours. Niners After Dark. Deebo will probably like a tweet, then we can talk about it. See you then.